We're on Lamed Chet Amud Aleph, and today I want to see two pieces in Tosafot. I had some wonderful idea based on conversation with Mark Pershan that we were going to look through an Aruch Laner, but I don't see it happening tonight, unfortunately. I'm sorry to disappoint. I don't have use of a copy or somebody use an office. I know. It's very disappointing, but we'll learn something on the daf, and hopefully it'll be edifying. And hopefully, I don't make any guarantees. We dealt with a Mishnah Gemara, a whole unit last time. Let me review it very briefly as a structure. The Mishnah had two clauses in it, two statements. And the Gemara was trying to understand, firstly, why it is that there was an expression in the first statement that made it sound like there was certain urgency. You have to take care of it immediately, namely the Netilat Lulav. And then the second statement made it sound like, yeah, well, you have some time. Why those two statements? The Gemara wanted to compare it. Maybe you're going to compare it to the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, where we have other examples of mitzvot d'Rabbanan, where if you started, you don't have to finish. And yet, this is a mitzvah. And one case saying you do have to stop immediately. Another case said you don't have to stop immediately. Trying to understand it, particularly the idea here of how Rav Safra resolved the two parts of this Mishnah. Rav Safra said the first point in this Gemara is in a situation where you don't have enough time, and in the second clause where you have the rest of the day. That means because you have enough time to still be able to complete the mitzvah later on. But Rav Safra, what he said himself, was up for debate. Rava disagreed with. He had a particular characterization of what the question and the answer must be. Rabbi Zera disagreed with him, and where the Gemara ended up, sort of the punchline in the end, after the back and forth, was obviously we have to assume that this Mishnah is not talking about a day of Yom Tov, because you can't travel on Yom Tov. Therefore, because it said you arrived and you didn't have your Lulav. Well, where were you? You were traveling. So if you were traveling, you can't travel on Yom Tov. So obviously it's Chol HaMoed. Therefore, there's no mitzvah d'oraita now to take Lulav anyway. So it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Therefore, it's on the same plane as any other mitzvah d'Rabbanan, like the mitzvah of Mincha, question mark. Remember, that was the discussion we had between the Rambam and the Ramban. The Ramban is like his big proof. Tefillah is only d'Rabbanan. The Rambam said, no. I said, Tefillah every day is d'oraita, but the Torah didn't tell you exactly how many times and when. So, okay, Mark has comments and Eddie has comments. No question.
Give a little shout out to Megillah Kuf, where
shout it out.
It lists all the doraitas that you have all day for, and Lulav specifically is mentioned.
Right.
So that's another
variable.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, why was that one not marshaled? Again, because in the end, what the Gemara comes to is, this isn't Lulav d'oraita anymore. It's Lulav d'Rabbanan. Remember, the Lulav d'oraita only exists in the Makom HaMikdash. Otherwise, in the Gvulin, it's one day. Usmachtem lifnei Hashem Elokeichem shivat yamim. That's the end of this pasuk about the mitzvah of Dal Minim. If you're outside of the Mikdash, there's no mitzvah to take the Dal Minim. What did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai do? He made a takana because of the realities of the Churban, where he said everyone should take it every day, Zeich LaMikdash. He didn't say every day it's going to be d'oraita. He couldn't do that. But he could say the first day, Torah says, by Yom HaRishon. Okay, so that's going to be d'oraita. The other day is d'Rabbanan. In a certain way, paradoxically, Bizman HaMikdash, if you lived outside the Beit HaMikdash, you spent all this money to buy a lulav in your etrog and you use it one day. Or you'd be encouraged. I spent all this money. I'm going up to Yerushalayim. I'm going to be on Har Bayit. I'm going to go do the mitzvahs up there. But once the Churban happened, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, everybody's got to do it, on their own kind of thing. So it's an interesting phenomenon. You see it in different places in halacha where things kind of like spread out. Everybody ended up doing it. I could think of other analogs. It'll take us too far off the daf, so we'll stop there. The idea, therefore, that the way in which the Mishnah was structured is two lines. Line one, when you come home, you have to do it immediately. You can't eat first. Line two, if you're eating and you see that you didn't take it in the morning, you could always take it in the afternoon because the whole day is kosher for lulav. But you just finished telling me I can have to do it right away. So just to recognize also that part of the analysis is when we when the Gemara started by pointing out a contradiction Namely, it said if you have to daven mincha, but you already started your meal, you don't have to stop your meal in order to daven mincha. So Rabbi Safra tried to reconcile the two contexts: mincha, where you don't have to stop, and the first statement of the Mishnah, where you do have to stop. No, he said, no, the difference is, one is where you have time, one is where you don't. So then that's when Rava chimed in and he said, you want to see right to the Rabbanan? No, that's not really going to work, right? So Rava says, no, the issue is, the point is that you came into your house and sounds like you have to do it right away. And then it says, well, you have all day. And then Rav Safra added, okay, it had to be a time vector. Rabbi Zera disagreed. He said, I'm halfway through over here already. Rabbi Zera, my kushya, do a mitzvah afsuke. Below pasik, yitol ben harbayim. Shkolim kash lulav. Right? He was trying to understand what do you mean when you claim that it had to be done in a certain particular sequence, in a certain rushed manner to do it immediately. You're calling it a mitzvah, etc. The fact is that there are two clauses to the Mishnah, and you're ignoring one of them by saying, well, wait a second, there were two parts. Rabbi Zera couldn't abide the way Rava, he thought, was sort of conflating the two of them. And then saying that Rabbi Safra's resolution was whether you have time or you don't have time to finish with the lulav before the sun sets. So Rabbi Zera came up with something else. No, I'll tell you actually what's going on. So Rabbi Zera la'olam kida amrinan meikara udikashilach hadoraita hadrabanan hachabiyam tavshein derabanan askinan. So everybody here has to agree, though, that we're dealing with strictly a context of derabanan, which is why, since they're on the same plane, Rav Safra said it's where you do have time or you don't have time. And the point is you're eating lunch. So you started lunch before mincha. Now it's mincha time. Do you have to stop? No, you don't have to stop. Why? You have plenty of time. You're not going to eat for 7 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is. But in the case of lulav, okay, now it's already the afternoon and you're eating. Maybe there you do have to stop, right?
So
Maybe you're out of time.
So I gave you the example last time, was the issue of Purim Suda that takes place on Erev Shabbos. So the same thing would apply, because you eating your meal, you can't go into Shabbos, you have to eat your meal and then go into the mincha. It would be the same.
Because you'll miss mincha, you're saying, yeah. Okay, but I'm going to come back to the Suda of Purim in a minute, because actually there's an idea when it comes out on a Friday called Poris Mapu Makadesh. In the middle of the meal, you just throw a tablecloth on top, you cover the bread, etc. You make a kiddush. You keep going. Weird, right?
In the normal thing, you would say.
It's Yalanism and Ritzeh.
If it's
no longer Purim, but you started your Suda before, it's a little bit of a tati de satre, right? We don't end up doing it. We discourage people from doing Poris Maput Makadesh. Also because the whole problem, mincha is stopping and all that. But the point Rabbi Zera is making is, look, the fact is it has to be Yom Tov Sheni, otherwise the Oraita versus the Rabbanan, there's no contest. It's obvious why you'd have to take your lulav first. It's a mitzvah d'oraita. So for mitzvah d'oraita, maybe stop. Mitzvah Rabbanan, you don't have to stop. No, they're both on the Rabbanan plane. And also another inference is the fact that it said you showed up on the day of and you hadn't had your lulav with you. Well, why would that be? So the answer is, okay, because it must be Chol HaMoed. Yeah. So I want to see 2 Tosfatim tonight. That's my goal. The top of the page. Maikusha Dilma ha de Oraita v'ha de Rabbanan. All right. So that was already right up at the top when Rav had said it, right? Maybe you want to make the chiluk that one is de Oraita, one's de Rabbanan. Look at Tosfot, top of the page. Yeah. Tosfot asks as follows. Tema. V'hare Kiddush hayom de Oraita. We know there's a mitzvah of reciting Kiddush on Shabbos. It's a biblical mitzvah, as we learn in the Gemara Masachet Brachot, right? Kedamrinan beparak mishameto. What do we say there? Nashim chayavet b'Kiddush hayom dvar Torah. Women are just as obligated in Kiddush hayom as men are in the Kiddush of Shabbos. Now, just to remind you, the Gemara in Pesachim and Kuvav points out Zachar at Yom HaShabbat l'Kadesho, and it there mentions Zachreu al Hayayin. The Zechira, which means the verbalization, should be upon a goblet of wine. Wine is dignified. Wine is a sign of royalty, etc. So that's one. Number 2 is that there's a Rashi in Shavuot that points out that Zachar and Shamor, of course, are connected, even though they're not next to each other in the Torah. Even though the word is not the same word, it's not a Gzera Shava, but we say Zachar v'Shamor v'Dibor Echad Nemru. The Gemara Shavuot says this, and so Rashi chimes in and points out, okay, even though they're not together, it's Luchot Rishonot, Luchot Shniot, whatever you want to say. It's really the The way it's described, the Aseret Dibra is described in Parshat Yitro, and the Aseret Dibra is described in Parshat Va'et Chanan. I slipped just now to say it's Luchot Rishon, Luchot Shniot. It's actually a machloket, if that's the case, if Rishon and Shen, if the two had different versions on them, or if the report is just different from what is actually written or whatnot. So whatever it is. But Zachar V'Shon V'Dibur Echad Namru. Kol Sheyashna B'Shmira, Yashna B'Zchira. Anyone who's obligated in the prohibitions of Shabbos, meaning in the guarding of Shabbos, in the fulfillment of Shabbos, in the abstaining from 39 creative acts of labor, is similarly obligated in the positive mitzvahs of Shabbos, such as Kiddush. So wait a second. Kiddush is actually considered the oraita, right? Obvious. Okay. So nonetheless, we have a little bit of a question, as we'll see in a moment, just to give you the coming attractions where we're getting there. Kiddush is called the oraita, and very obviously so in the Gemara in Pesachim. But then further along in the Gemara in Nazir, it makes it sound as if the aspect of yayin is itself only derabanan. So that's the next part here. V'hamashim b'reish Nazir, shehu midrabanan. A yayin hu midrabanan. It's with regard to the yayin that it's considered midrabanan. The darish lesser ala yayin mitzvah ki yayin harishut. And what's the Gemara talking about here? Let me fill in the gap. The Gemara wants to know in Masechet Nazir, how does a person become a Nazir? So Rabbi Shimon in that Gemara says that a person has to actually yazir atzmo miyayin v'shechar v'chol dvarim muzkarim b'Torah. A person has to actually stipulate wine, ale, anything that they want to become a Nazir from. They have to say it explicitly. The Rabbanan disagree, and they think that even if the Nazir just says, "I want to be a Nazir and I'll stay away from fill in the blank," whatever I say, I just want to stay away from ale. It implies wine. It implies everything in one statement, and their proof is because the parsha of the Nazir uses the expression miyayin v'shechar yazir, and the Rabbanan learned from that expression in the Torah that it's a catch-all. If you announce you want to be a Nazir for X, whatever X is, whether it's yayin or shechar, the other one's dragged along with it. So then the Gemara says in Nazir to Reb Shimon, what do you do with that pasuk? It's a pasuk in the Torah. What do you do with that pasuk? So the answer that Rabbi Shimon gives is, it's to be oser yain mitzvah like yain reshut, to make it prohibited for the Nazir. Why does it say yain v'shechar? Miyayin v'shechar yazir. Why does it say it that way? Rabbi Shimon says it's in order to draw a parallel. The catch-all, there is a catch-all in that statement. It's not the catch-all of substances, it's the catch-all of applications. Catch-all, a person says, I'm going to stay away from wine. You know what they meant also? Not just the wine of delicacy and enjoyment, but the wine of a mitzvah. Wine of a mitzvah, you could be oser, wine of a mitzvah. The Gemara then says, wait a second, what is yain mitzvah? So now looking, that's what's the first of the narrow lines of Tosafot. V'kamrina and Maihi, what is the yain mitzvah? And the Gemara, the Gemara there in Nazir, quoted by Tosafot here, first of the narrow lines, Kiddusha ve'avdalta. Yeah? When it comes to Kiddush and Havdalah, the Gemara says, no, and Nazir says, what? No, that can't be. You know why? Because Kiddush and Havdalah, two ceremonies we need to do, two paragraphs we read, that's mushbev me'omed hu. That's mushbev omed Har Sinai. If you're under oath of something from Har Sinai, you cannot make a shvuah levatel mitzvah. It's zero. It's what shav. Understand? You decide. You make an announcement. I hereby swear I will not perform mitzvah X. You didn't say anything because you can't. You're already under oath from the Torah. Yeah. So the point here is that the Gemara says in Nazir, well, Kiddush and Havdalah, that's the yain mitzvah. No, that can't be because Kiddush and Havdalah are actually mitzvot midoraita, and they are actually mushbib omer Har Sinai. You can't make a shvuah about it. You can't become a Nazir against the mitzvah. Oh, umeshane Kiddush atzmo deoraita. What we learn from this is that the Kiddush itself, the statement, the language, that's the oraita. But what's the Rabbanan? The yayin. The yayin is the Rabbanan.
That's why you don't have yayin and
Right, and that's also why if you're stuck by on Shabbos, so you can use other things, challah or whatever. If you're stuck,
He would just use challah.
yeah, mean hastam. It's according to Rabbi Shimon, you're swearing off the yain mitzvah,
No,
right?
you can make it into challah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But once we say that Kiddush itself is the Oraita, but we also have Va'afilu Hachi, keep going. Am Rabbi Yossi, Bereish Arvei Psachim, and here comes now. All this was the wind up for the. This is the pitch. This is the question. Because right now this is all a wind up. Can I say the same? Just let me say the one sentence of the question. Hopefully it'll because we're not at the question yet. This was all the background. Let me review the background. I'm sorry. Wait, you want a question? Okay, let me say. Va'afilu Hachi, Am Rabbi Yossi, Bereish Arvei Psachim, De'ein Mafsikin, Upaskin and Hatam, Halach Rabbi Yossi, Be'erev Shabbat, Uch Rabbi Yehuda Be'erev Pesach. Rabbi Yossi says in the Gemara Masachet Psachim that if a person was in the middle of their meal on Friday afternoon and it went into Shabbos, you do not have to stop your meal in order to make Kiddush immediately. This is the meal on Shabbos, and Rabbi Yehuda has another psak for Pesach. What's the psak on Pesach? Rabbi Yehuda says you have to stop eating by the 9th hour so that you can come to your Seder not full for when you eat matzah, etc. This is not the prohibition on eating matzah. It's the prohibition on having a meal too close to the Seder. Because you want to come the te'ava that you want to eat, the te'ava.
You have wine at that meal.
Which meal?
The meal, the Erev Pesach.
There weren't too many beverages in antiquity. You had water, you had wine, you had ale, you had Coke.
And wine on Erev Pesach?
Yicholiot.
Interesting.
But the psak in it is by 9 hours, or whatever it's 9 hours, then you can't do it. But that's sort of on the side.
But he needs that to convert from a Doraita to a Dorabana.
Right, but
he needs to show that there's duality there.
Yes.
In order to get to his question.
Yes, and exactly, but that the wine itself is derabbanan, but we still have the problem. Let's say you're in the middle of a meal, and you had a mitzvah d'oraita that came your way. Wasn't the assumption of the Gemara initially, based on their understanding of the Mishnah, that if a mitzvah d'oraita comes your way, you have to stop immediately? Remember?
Right.
And they said, but if it's derabbanan, then you could wait. And mincha is only derabbanan. That was originally what happened.
Right.
Then we get out of it. We said, well, no, in the end, they're both derabbanan, but one is where you have enough time, one's where you don't have enough time. If you had enough time left over before the end of the day, you could finish your meal. And if you didn't, you have to do the mitzvah right away, whether it's lulav, whether it's mincha.
Didn't we start out by saying, how come you have to interrupt when in fact there's two other Gemaras that say you don't, you have all day?
Right, but the point, right? So the point was,
So we resolved that by saying
it's that you don't have enough time left.
Well, either it's the end of the day and whatever, like it's.
Wait, or
it's actually a case of both the Rabbans.
right, but you have to knock them both down to the same level. That was the point.
Right.
So the question of Tosafot basically here is, wait a minute. Everybody agrees in the end that Kiddush, the recitation of the words, is itself to oraita.
Right.
Even if it resolved this sort of side question, hey, I thought Kiddush is oraita, but in the Gemara Nazir makes it sound like Kiddush is Rabbanan. No, only the wine is the Rabbanan,
Okay.
but Kiddush itself is the oraita.
Okay, I'm with you.
So now the Gemara is saying, okay, but then there's a halacha. We paskin this way. If you're in the middle of a meal on Friday afternoon, do not try this at home, by the way, because the halacha doesn't really go this way today. You shouldn't really be having a meal, 10 minutes before Shabbos, because you're going to eat during Shabbos. But and there's also health considerations. That's not halacha, but I was throwing that in. But if you're eating a meal Friday afternoon and it goes into Shabbos, you daven mincha gedola. You came home, you were starving. You start eating a meal. It's the winter, so then it's Shabbos suddenly. The candles. Someone else lit the candles. They come to you. It's Shabbos. I'm in the middle of a meal. Do you have to stop me to make Kiddush? Rabbi Yossi says, no. Make Kiddush anytime you want. Why? I thought you have to. It's deoraita. And one of the chilukim that we had was, well, if we think that lulav is deoraita and you're eating a meal versus doing the mitzvah, you better do the mitzvah. Remember, it was only once we knocked lulav down to be also derabbanan that we said, okay, then you could wait if you have the time. Are you still with me, or did I lose you?
But don't we have the concept of in Kiddush al Bamakom Suda? So
You're already having your Suda.
So he had his Suda.
Beautiful. You're having your Suda. You're in the middle of it. You're in the middle of enjoying it right
So
now.
why couldn't he he makes his Kiddush.
So the question is, do you have to stop in the middle to make Kiddush? Or could you finish eating and then make Kiddush later? And you know what Rabbi Yossi says? You could finish and make Kiddush later. The Bali Tosafot would say, well, wait a second. Look at the Dibur Matchel. My kushya, Dilma ha de oraita ha de rabbanan. Remember? What's the question here? Maybe this is the oraita and that's the rabbanan, right? That was right at the beginning. Again, go back to it if you want to see it in the Gemara, right? Amrat notla shulchano lemimah. The fact that it says you take it upon your table sounds like you stop immediately or a meaning, but yet we learned elsewhere regarding mincha, imit chilu, if he started his meal already, im mafsikin. So Rav Safra lo kashya, hadi ikasud bayom, hadi lekasud bayom. And then Rava says, wait a second, Amar Rava, my kushya. What is the question between a lulav and mincha? Dilma ha deoraita. When it comes to lulav, it's deoraita. Ha derabanan. And when it comes to mincha, mincha is only derabanan. Ela Amar Rava, ikashya ha kashya. The shikanos lebeit not la shulchano. Amar demafsik. All right. When it's the issue is first you come in your house, make your to pick up your lulav first. And that makes it sound like if you started eating, better stop eating immediately. Then it says, well, if you didn't take it in Shachrit, you forgot. So you told me minutes in the afternoon, sounds like you don't. So the Gemara answered, Amar Rav Sa, and Rav Safa answered, okay, had the ikasut biyom, had the lekasut biyom. That must be the answer. It's just a time factor. But if you had the time, take as long as you want. But the point is that you want to say maybe the distinction is one's d'oraita, one's d'Rabbanan. Wait, we have an example where there is a mitzvah d'oraita, Kiddush, where the psak actually is you don't have to stop your meal. Yet nobody in the Gemara thought to mention that one. Instead, it's reaching for mincha. You understand? It's reaching for mincha time as the analog. The Tosafot's question is, wouldn't this have been a much stronger argument? Wouldn't it have been better to say like this? Make it up again, okay? You come into your house, take the lulav right away, don't eat. If you started eating, you have to stop eating. But if you started eating and there's in Shachrit, don't worry, because you could still take the lulav in the afternoon. So the Gemara asks, these two statements seem contradictory, but even worse than that, when we look in the Gemara in Masachet Psachim, it says in Masachet Psachim that if you had a mitzvah d'oraita of Kiddush, you don't have to stop for that. But for lulav, you have to stop? That would have been a stronger question. That's Tosafot. Tosafot are basically saying, like, we found a better example for the Gemara than the Gemara invoked. Why don't you use that? It would have been smarter, so to speak, than invoking about mincha, because we got off the hook so easily with mincha. Well, mincha is only d'Rabbanan, and that's d'oraita. Okay, so what did the Gemara do? It knocked lulav down to also be d'Rabbanan. But you know what else it could have done? Could have said lulav is d'oraita, and here's something else d'oraita, Kiddush. And the psak actually, the Gemara, Medina de Gemara is very, well, I mean, it's already from a Tana, from Yossi, is that you don't have to stop your meal. How come in lulav you have to stop your meal? And the answer could have been, because here you have time and here you don't have time. That would have been a nice answer. But the Gemara never even talked about Kiddush. And the Bali Tosafot's job, just so you remember, just like methodologically is, they're looking for contradictions based on other places in Shas, right? You have the thesis, which is the Gemara, the antithesis, which is there's another Gemara out there which contradicts it. That's the Im Tomar. If you'll show me a contradiction, the Yesh Lomar, here's the synthesis between the two. Here's why the Gemara, now what the answer is going to be, why didn't the Gemara reach for Kiddush? It's going to give us two reasons. Even though it would have been very easy. Understand? It would have been a stronger kasha than talking to us about mincha, where the net result had to be, well, let's even the playing field. We'll talk about lulav. It's the second day of Yontif. It's not really d'oraita. You follow? Is everyone with me? So we get to the answer. It's two beautiful answers, but it's so simple that when you read it, you're like, oh, I didn't even think of that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
The example of eating before Shabbos, what is that meal considered? Is it considered just regular meal? It's nothing.
Yeah. By the way, there's an Indian today not to be kaveh suda already in the afternoon, Friday. So you come Shabbos, you can eat.
It's nothing. So why wouldn't you for sure have to stop and make it?
Yeah, but that was what Ira was asking before. But that's oddly enough, that's the point. Your suda was transformed into the Kiddush b'makom suda. You just happened to have the suda before.
So then it means
Weird.
The suda is something. Once it's time for Kiddush, then the suda becomes something.
Only if you make Kiddush then.
But the suda wasn't meant to be a suda.
I know. So practically, bisman hazeh, I'm actually not sure what the halacha is. I have someone who asked me, like in the shul, I would say, notwithstanding the fact that Yossi Paskin this way, unless it actually just happened to you that way, you should not set out to have a meal on Friday afternoon when you know you're going to have a Shabbos meal coming afterward, where the reality is that you're actually supposed to eat a suda on Shabbos. So you'd have to like make Kiddush and have another suda.
But I think the thing is that a doraita, you have time on a doraita.
Sometimes.
A lot of it.
A lot of them. A lot of them. Yeah.
You have time. You have the mitzvah to do it right away, but you also have the allowance of time. That's the kasha that's why I understand why Tosafos bring Kiddush, bring the Mishnah Megillah. I mean, the same thing. It says you have time. So anything that says you have time on a doraita, including a list of.
would be a contradiction to this case already.
The ratio of our mission.
Granted.
So,
Granted.
I mean-
So what you're saying is actually already a little bit of the answer of what Tosafot say. Let's look at it inside because there's a little bit of direction that they go. What would happen if, let's say, I don't know, use a positive example. Someone was a doctor and they weren't home Friday night at all. They never had a Shabbos meal. They got home 2 a.m. They collapsed. They woke up in the morning, never had a Shabbos meal, never made Kiddush.
Eat 3 meals on a day.
Eat 3 meals Shabbos day. And on the first one, pick up your goblet of wine. Yom Hashishi v'aychu Shemaim v'aretz v'chol tzva'am. Baruch atah Hashem, Baruch Piragafen, Baruch atah Hashem, whatever. Baruch atah Hashem. I don't even write. Sure. Kitchanu mitzvah v'ratzavan v'shabbat kol shalav v'ratzim in Chlan. I'm going to Shmoneh.
Wait, I think.
Anu v'achar to end. Baruch atah Hashem mekadesh Shabbat. Shabbos day. You know why? Tosafot point out because the mitzvah is to be mekadesh the yom. We don't wait 12 hours into the day. You do it right away. But if you didn't for some reason, as Mark was pointing out, it's a mitzvah zachor yom Shabbat lekadesh.
I thought. I knew that if you didn't make Kiddush Friday night, you have to do it Shabbos day anyway. But I thought that Shabbos day you shouldn't say Yom Hashishi.
Yeah. So
thought
the
you only
discussion
said
if you say the psukim or not, if you do or you don't, whether you whether you can be made or not during the daytime. What?
The ikr is the bracha.
The ikr really is the bracha. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The main thing is the bracha. That does the truth. I dramatized it with the singing. Forgive me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yom Hashishi, but it does. It has a gafen and it has the bracha, the birkat yom. Now, by the by, we look at Tosafot. V'yesh lomar the shani kiddush yom sheachol kadosh b'yom kivalayla v'leika lamechash l'pshiuta kulehai. We're not as worried that you are going to be negligent with it, because if you forgot the whole night, you're for sure going to wake up in the morning and you're going to do it for sure, right? Wait, what are you asking about the kiddush of the day? What is Shamru? So
That's not the oraita.
there we go. Kiddush. There's the kiddush during the day. What?
You have to say Isha Kyle at everything.
Right, I think it's just oh, very nice. That was recorded, Mark. We're gonna play it back for Debbie. It's nice. So what Arthur just pointed out, though, halachically, that is the Indian. During the day, it's called Kiddusha Rabbah. The truth is, the Kiddusha Rabbah, the great Kiddush, is just Baruch atah Hashem l'kem l'chol bar piragafen. That's really what it is. Or some people like to add Al Kain Beirach, which I did for many years as a teen, so I'm not going to look askance at it, but you understand it's only a fragment of a pasuk, and we have halacha psuka called pasuk lepaskinan Moshe lepaskinan Anna. We don't just break up psukim on our own.
7.
I don't know why that became popular, but it became popular, and whatever. That's your family's minhag. Who am I to stand in your place? But that's where the parsha of Zachor is from. That's the parsha of Shamru. That's the parsha in Tashiv. This is all to make it a greater kiddush. We add psukim. These are long-standing minhagim. I'm not trying to chalila knock them down. I'm just saying, Lamaisa, Kiddush Makam Suda means Bar Piragafen, and you eat. And the Kiddusha Rabbah of the day, it's not the oraita by anyone's standard, except if you didn't make Kiddush the night before, in which case you make Kiddush the day off, in which case the Kiddush is Al Hayayin, Zachor Al Yayin. But if you didn't have Yayin, stuck in a hotel room, whatever it is, so you take out your rolls and you use that. No, the schnapps, that's another story. The schnapps, that's why people went to schnapps during the day, because it's something that you would serve a guest. There are all different things that could be a stand-in for yayin. But when it's actually the mitzvah of Kiddush, Friday night, if you don't have wine, you cannot move over and use schnapps or orange juice or Coca-Cola or whatever, all those things people use. Then you have to use specifically challah, the challah. Yeah. And why is Havdalah different? Okay, this is already Havdalah here. We're not up to that. But what Tosafot say here is you're not going to be that negligent, because if you forgot at night, you still do it during the day. The second answer, Lefisha osik b'seudat Shabbat. Now this is to Iris' point, to George's point. You're in the middle of the Suda of Shabbos. Since you're in the middle of eating the Suda of Shabbos, you started before Shabbos. Yes, but now it is Shabbos. So you take the food, proverbially or directly, depending, literally, you say, Lekuvit Shabbos. So, it's Shabbos? Great, I'm eating my Shabbos meal. Oh, good. Now you're eating for Shabbos. So if that's the case, you're not going to be that lazy that you're not going to actually say Kiddush. So if you don't stop immediately, for one of two reasons: either you have the whole day, as Mark pointed out, one of those mitzvot d'oraita that you have all day long for, and still the nighttime. Number two, the character of the Suda is a Suda of Shabbat, because it is that time, and that's what you're eating. You started before, you'd have it in mind when you started. Apparently, according to this Tosafot at least, That's of lesser significance.
Can you explain why Tosafot didn't differentiate between Yom Tov Rishon and Yom Tov Sheni?
Huh?
He doesn't-
Tosafot, Yom Tov, well, the next one's Yom Tov Sheni D'Rabbanan.
Oh, okay, fine, I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I was just wondering why he didn't say it. Okay, fine.
yeah, it's the next one. It's the next one. Okay. So- Yeah.
No, we're
Wait,
using
one
the,
second. Eddie's got the floor. Art, give me 1 second. Eddie's question, I'll repeat it for everyone.
This is a side thing really, right? But the Kiddush, the Kiddush that's the Oraita includes some Sukkim, right? So you can't just say word pre-government
The Kiddush do right at night?
at night, but then during the day, if you didn't do it at night, or you could just say word.
Oh, it's not. Yeah, it's not clear. No, you have to say the bracha. Asher Kishanim was Tavarat Savanu Shabbat Kodesh Ba'av Ratzon. That's actually from that's Kiddush. That's what it is. Yeah, the preamble part, very important, very significant. But if you were stuck or something, because that's the edut, that's where you're actually making the testimony happen. But it's not clear that still obtains during the day. Look at the Ayin Sham, the Amida at night. That's what Vayichul is doing there. And this doesn't presuppose by that you forgot you didn't daven Marav, although if you didn't daven Marav, I guess that's also
Well,
a
one
feature.
wouldn't
But
make the Kiddush, wouldn't say two Kiddushin, wouldn't say,
No.
that gets-
well, on your second meal, you finish your first meal during the day, you bench, and then for the next one, take a walk around the block, come back, you say Kiddush, yeah. Or Al Kain if that's what you do. But again, I'm not so keen on it just because it's literally chopping off a piece of a pasuk. Of course, I'm guilty as charged. I say Vayer Vayivoku Yamashishi. How come you don't start from the beginning? There are people who start from the beginning. I don't know. That's what I learned from my father, my grandfather. Okay. I don't know. But you do with just Yom HaShishi. Oh, okay. There you have it.
Your daytime Kiddush
It
starts.
says very early. They a lot.
It starts with the pasuk from Yeshaya.
Im Tashiv.
Honor Shabbat, etc.
Yeah. Art had a question or comment. Please go ahead, Art.
yeah, no, everybody's talking about Yom Tov Sheni D'Rabbanan. I'm under the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, that when they're using the term Yom Tov Sheni here, they mean Chol HaMoed.
Chol Hamoed.
Okay, all right. It's
All right.
not really Yom Tov Sheni.
No, not Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galia. Chol Hamoed.
Okay,
That's why I
Okay.
said we're traveling. Look at the end of the Gemara.
That was my question.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's not understanding. Yeah. But Tosafot, a Yom Tov Sheni D'Rabbanan that it's mentioning here, it's also referring to Chol Hamoed. It's the next Tosafot.
Yeah.
We're gonna have time for. So let's look at it. Let's look at it inside. I just want to say one more thing about that first Tosafot. You understand what Tosafot was doing? I was saying we have a much better example, Kiddush, but it turned out it wasn't as good an example because the answers that Tosafot gave were, number one, if you didn't do it at night, you have all the way the next day. And the case at hand was you're in the middle of eating the meal. The case has to be the words have to be you're in the middle of eating the meal, because that way it's an analog to our Mishnah, which is you're in the middle of eating the meal. You have to stop to take the Lulav. So it has to be one of those cases. So the case that it found was a case where that's not a good example because the mitzvah deoraita, if you wanted to argue, and it turns out not to be true, but in the Havamina, the Mishnah was talking about the mitzvah deoraita of Lulav. Great. So the mitzvah deoraita of Kiddush, also a mitzvah deoraita conflicting with a meal, not a good comparison. Why? Because the mitzvah deoraita of Kiddush, you can still do all the way the next day and the whole day, number one. Number two, the character of the meal is a character of the meal of Shabbat, and the Kiddush is about Shabbat itself. So the fact that you're sitting there, you're not going to be that lazy. You're sitting with the food, and one of those foods is not most likely going to be wine, and you're going to use the wine, and that's going to be the end of it. Yeah. That's the first Tosafot. Second Tosafot, Yom Tov Sheni D'Rabbanan. So remember, the Gemara had a shackle of Ataria going on back and forth, and it was all about the kushya of Rav Safra, right? Or with regard to what Rav Safra, we went back and forth about Rav Safra. That Rav Safra's statement was, no, the distinction between the first part of this and the second part of this, that was how the Gemara ended up saying it with Rabbi Zera, is you have time, you don't have time. That's in the end what ended up happening in this Gemara, right? We went back and said, what did Rav Safra mean when he said, here you have time, here you don't have time? It wasn't Mincha versus Lulav. It was the Misha Baba Derech B'yado Lulav Litol Shikanes Beito Itol Shulchano, semicolon. That's where you don't have time. Lo Natal Shachrit Yitol Ben Harbayim Shekoyam Kashal Lulav. That's where you do have a lot of time. So that was the maskana, And it seems as if this is true even on Yom Tov Sheni, i.e. on Chol HaMoed, when you were traveling, but it's coming to the end of the day, where the whole fulfillment of the mitzvah of Lulav altogether is the Rabbanan, but you don't have enough time left in the day. In such a case, to fulfill the mitzvah of Lulav, if you would complete your meal, in such a case, you have to stop your meal and you have to do that mitzvah, the Rabbanan, of picking up the Lulav, because you're going to lose the opportunity completely for that day, right? That was the maskana, right? Now, we still have to understand, and this is what Tosafot say here is, we'll just start reading it, I guess. What does it mean that you might have time for Lulav and you might have time for Mincha left over, the Ika Shehut? Are those really the same thing? We said that with regard to Lulav, technically it's all day long. With regard to Mincha, it's only in the afternoon. Is there a distinction there? So look at Tosafot. Yom Tov Sheni de Rabbanan. Vakati have a matzili shnuye. The idi v'idi ika shehut. You know what? The Gemara really, even though it claimed that the case at hand is Yom Tov Sheni de Rabbanan, that's what it said about the Lulav. And that was sort of how we put it on a par with Mincha. But you know what? There's actually a big distinction between Lulav, where you have time, and Mincha, where you have time. You know what it is? Lulav is programmed as Mark pointed out, it's an all-day long mitzvah. That's true de oraita, and it's true even when you make it a derabbanan mitzvah. It's any time from sunrise to sunset. You can do the mitzvah, yeah? But Mincha is only a limited amount of time every day. So this is what Tosafot say. We're more worried maybe that you're going to be negligent when it comes to Lulav because you have a longer time span in which you can fulfill the mitzvah.
Urgency.
Ironically, having more time creates more lassitude. You're more relaxed. Yeah, I'll get to it. But when you know you're under the gun, you feel more of a time pressure. It's more in your consciousness that you're going to have to do the mitzvah. Well, then when you say the words Ika Shehut, Gabe Lulav, Ika Shehut, Gabe Mincha, Ika Shehut means there's still time. It means the same thing translated into English, but it doesn't actually mean the same thing from the psychological perspective, I would say, of how the person is going to interact with it. And the Bali Tosa give an example as sort of the proof text for this, and that's the Kidamrina Parakama de Shabbat, B'mincha, Kaven de Kviya le Zimna, Mirtat, V'lo Atil Mifsha. Since there is a set fixed time when it's going to end, Mincha is never what? You get 7 hours, 6 hours, well, 6 hours shot, it's maniyot, but I'm saying, say in the summer, you have from 1:30 till 8 o'clock at night. That's a long time for Mincha. But Mariv is much longer. Mincha is only a few hours. That's the max. It's going to be 7-8 hours. So because you have a certain number of hours, you feel more of it's like daily programming. You feel like more of a stress. I got to take care of it. Arvid, Kaven, the Kule Lelaya, Zimne, Lomirtat, Va'ati Lamifsha. Because of the fact that Mariv is all night long, it's minimally 12 hours long. It's always actually 12 hours long. She'od Zmaniyot. In the summer, that's way longer than, it's shorter, but in the winter, it's way longer. Come next week, be 5 o'clock through till, whatever it is, 8:30 a.m. You could daven Mariv. Not really, but that's what it feels like. I have friends in Detroit. They actually have that problem in the morning.
Mariv
but-
was at Hasot. Mariv was at Hasot.
Ad Chatzot, ideally, correct. But if you didn't get to it, you're Mekayim it all night.
So one could theoretically daven Mariv at 3 in the morning?
Theoretically, if you didn't get to Chatzot, remember the Gemara, that's the first Mishnah in Brachot. Who is it? Rabban Gamliel. Telling his boys, Ad Chatzot, Ad Chatzot. Yeah. But if you're stuck, yeah. Now, by the by, the Gemara in Masachet Shabbat, if you look it up in Daf Yud, says that for those who hold that Mariv is not a Reshut but a Chova, actually, if you're in the middle of a meal, you have to stop the meal immediately and daven Mariv. For those who hold that Mariv is a Chova, which is interesting. And then, why not for Mincha? Again, the idea here is that because technically, Kol Halayla Kasher for Mariv, it's not ideal. It's b'diavad. Before Chatzot. But let's say you didn't. You could daven 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Yeah. No. Yeah. Could happen. Mamash could happen. So. Yeah. So, okay. The point is, since you have such a longer period of time for Mariv, you're going to just forget. And if you say Mariv is a chova, by the way, if Mariv is a chova, it's not a chova d'oraita according to anybody's opinion. It's a chova d'Rabbanan, not more than that. You have to stop right there. Great. Stop and daven Mariv right away because you're going to miss the time. Because you're not going to think about it as much. So the Gemara, the Bali Tosafot here, want to know, what this is about. So again, you could have said the difference between the shehut of mincha and the shehut of lulav. Shehut of mincha is a shorter period of time, but it's on your mind more. Shehut of lulav is all day long. It's 12 hours. Shehut maniyot. You're not going to think about it as much. Yehuda, you have something to say? I'm sorry.
No, it was Larry.
Oh, Larry, go ahead. Sorry.
It was not I. Be thankful. I didn't say anything.
Oh, I'm thankful you didn't say anything. Okay. You're unmuted, so it's like it's confusing. I thought I heard you say something. I muted you, but unmute if you want to talk.
A couple of years ago, we were on an Alaska cruise in the summer.
Wow.
You have all day for Mincha.
That's right.
Yeah, 3 hours for Mincha.
Yeah. We had this Shiloh, someone was going to, I think it was Antarctica. They had Shiloh's, had to start figuring out this very, very short window for Mariv. And there's a big Shiloh for you about what you do for Shabbos. Okay. Motzei Shabbat is 2 a.m. Yeah. Did you go to Alaska? Oh, but yeah.
I'm troubled by something here that straighten me out because I'm unstraight. We have a mission that sort of gives these situations, and then Tosafot, Rashi, they're all, and some of the other reports you might look at, they're all twisting this to try to get to a situation that fits it. But the situation is describable for almost any mitzvah, right? Mincha, if it's 10 minutes before Shkia, you're going to have to break away and daven Mincha.
Mhm.
I mean, everything just seems to be. I'm looking for sort of the claw out of it. Like, what is the actual rule that allows us to say, get up from your.
The idea is you don't want to miss out on the mitzvah opportunity.
Right, so everyone's creating a situation and then they're extending that situation, Tosafot's extending a situation to other Gemaras that have similar types of kashas, right?
Right, but Tosafot's methodology, I was saying before, Tosafot's methodology is, why did it say this in the Gemara when for sure in the Shas, they know that there's another sugya that would have fit maybe even better.
Right.
Or there's another sugya that totally contradicts what we're seeing here.
Right,
So in the first case, it was about elevating the mitzvah of saying there's another mitzvah that's on a d'oraita plane, namely Kiddush, that would have compared very nicely to Lulav. Why did they reach for a d'Rabbanan like Mincha?
Right.
And the answer in the end was no, Kiddush was not a good comparison.
I got it.
Tosafot number 2 now is saying, wait a second, I'm trying to understand this. You said that the comparison between Mincha and Musaf, between Lulav and Mincha was a great comparison, but the only distinction was whether you have time or you don't. If you don't have a lot of time to daven Mincha, then you could finish your meal. If you don't have a lot of time to finish your meal before Mincha, you have to stop daven Mincha. And with regard to the case of Lulav, it happened to be a case where, first part of the Mishnah, you don't have a lot of time till the sun sets. And in the latter part of the Mishnah, you do have a lot of time till the sun sets. And therefore, the Mishnah gave you that klal, mitzvah shekol hayom kasher lulav. The Bali Tosafot would say, wait a second. But we all know that the Gemara in Shabbat tells us that the idea of having a sense of shehut for mincha is actually not the same thing as the shehut for, say, mariv. So why do you think you're comparing the shehut of mincha to the shehut of lulav here either? Just like mariv is all night long, lulav is all day long. The same way we're worried in the middle of your meal at mariv time that you're totally going to forget because you have all night long. So it's not thinking about it. I don't have pressure for it. I could do it at 9, I could do it at 10, I could do it at 11, at 12. If I miss 12, I could do it at 2, at 3, at 4. When it comes to lulav, you can also say that, right? So why did you say that the distinction was shehud or not shehud, and you compared it to mincha? It's not a good comparison. Mincha, the point of Tosafot is, mincha, don't you always feel more of a time pressure than you do for mariv? And if that's true, then how could you say that you're comparing apples to apples? You're really not. So just in the difference, what's going on? So now to take it to the next step. So we quote again. I'm going to do Tosafot Nachamol. Avakati havamatzi lishnuye the ida v'ida ikashut el mishum dekula yom zimnehu chashinan tfei dima ata lemifsha. So we still could have said, it still could have sharpened it and taught us that this and that one, even though we talk about there being time till you have to finish to get to the deadline, maybe one of them you have all day long, i.e. Lulav, so that's going to be easier to forget to do it, as opposed to Mincha, where you're going to have less time frame. Wait, you want to say something? I didn't hear you. Question?
No, we were just talking about Shachri.
Oh.
There's a specific time, you can't do Shachri at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Right, there's a limit there
There's a
too.
limit there.
Yeah. In the olden days, nobody ate breakfast. Break fast is lunch. That's why, because there's no Suda going on in the morning. 2 meals a day.
Another slight difference with Mincha, if you don't want to try this at home, but if you miss it, you could make it up in Myra, right?
You do Tashlumin. If you miss Shabbos, you got to do Tashlumin and Mincha.
But if you miss, you can't do anything with the Lulav. Once
Right,
it's done, it's
right, right,
Right. So
right. No Tashlumin for Lulav, but there's Tashlumin for Tefillah. Just pointing out another distinction. It's like there's more pressure if you don't get to it. But you're not gonna, the point is, the longer the time zone that you get an extension on the paper, the more likely it is it's gonna be taking longer. There's more of a time pressure, you're gonna feel it. Now look what Tosafot does here. And it points out, Kidamrina Perakama de Shabbat, here's the proof. But Mincha, what? Everyone with me? Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Give me an extension on a term paper. You always wait till
That's
the
what I'm
end.
saying. So it's you're pushing it off, right?
Don't procrastinate.
Keep digging.
But Mincha Kaven the Kviyale Zimna Mirtat. You're nervous about it. It says in the Gemara Masechet Shabbat on Daf Yud. V'lat lemifsha. Arvit the Kaven the Kulei Lalaya Zimne. You have the whole night. Lo Mirtat. V'at lemifsha. You're not as afraid. Mirtat means a sense of fear or trepidation. You don't have it anymore. The retet. You're not there. So instead, you're going to come to be negligent. V'ein lomar. Don't try to answer. Mishum dahatim lilayis man shein v'chashinan tfei. Don't answer me and say, well, at nighttime, the issue is, it's not that you're going to be lazy and you're going to forget, be negligent. It's that you're going to fall asleep, and that's the problem. Don't say that. Why? The imkain, hayu taima, havel hata. If that's the case, in other words, if you want to argue that Mariv is a time of sleep as opposed to Lulav, which is all day, therefore you're going to be awake, therefore you're going to be thinking about it. If that was true, the Gemara Masechet Shabbat should have just said the Kula Leilaya Zimne. It should have said, instead of that, it should have said because time of sleep. And the Gemara Masechet Shabbat used the language with regard to Mariv of Atel Mifsha. You're going to be lazy or negligent, but it wasn't because you're going to fall asleep. It's that you have a longer time frame. So you keep saying, I'll do it, I'll get to it. And you may not. The Yeshlomer answered Tosafot. The Tefillah Tzricha Shehut Umitatzel Bat Fei Minatilat Lulav the Michi Agbe Nafak Bey. Next time, one of us, could be me, could be you get to shul and you think, I wish today I was oiske davent. You know what that means? When you get to davening, you wish you had already finished davening. You have days. Kavanah is not so good. You have rushed, you have problems. And instead of focusing on davening, you're already like, I got to catch it. I got to train. I got this. What? Okay, so right, so that's what Tosafot would say. Tosafot would say it takes time to daven. It doesn't take time to pick up the lulav. It's 2 seconds of your day. So lift it up. Therefore, since that's the reality, you can't really make a comparison that the issue is that if you don't, we have to force a guy to stop for Marv. You know why? We don't force him to stop for Marv. He's going to say, I have a whole day. I'm going to get to it. But you know why that's not a good comparison to lulav? Because your negative, the friction, the spiritual friction, the drag that's pulling you away from davening Marv, it takes time. And that's why you come to be mifsha. I'm eating, I'll do it later. It takes time. But the lulav, that's not a good comparison to lulav. Because the whole issue with the lulav, it's a 2-second job. You pick it up, mida agbe, nafke. You pick it up, you yotze, and the mitzvah ready. It doesn't take any time. So the Ba'ai Tosafot basically say, you have to force the person to stop for Marv, the Gemara and Shabbos, as opposed to lulav, which is a momentary fulfillment. Therefore, the comparison of you have pressure for mincha, you don't have pressure for lulav. Yeah, that's true, except for one thing. Lulav is going to take you 2 seconds. And whatever pressure you feel for mincha, okay, so in other words, it kind of like they leveled the pressure by saying, it's true that mincha takes a little longer time, But it's also true that you have the time pressure, you're going to run out because you have a shorter time frame. Lulav, you have a longer time frame, but it's a 2-second deal. But why is Mariv not in the running? Because Mariv has two factors. You have the whole night, long time frame, and also it takes time. When you put those two together, I'll get to it later. Yeah, that's how you're gonna. So therefore, you're in the middle of a meal, according to like Gemara and Shabbat. If you're in the middle of a meal, you didn't have Mariv. Those who hold Mariv as a chova, by the way, hold this way. So they have to stop your meal and daven right away.
So if you're
Yeah.
in the middle of your Purim Suda and you realize you didn't hear Megillah,
And it's still daytime?
and still daytime, you get up immediately, or you
Oh,
wait till
yeah.
the Suda?
No, because you've run out of time. The sun goes down too late. You can't do the McGill anymore.
No. Let's say it's noon. You have to. Would it be the same thing as Lulav?
Oh.
Or is it you get up? right away,
Oh,
or you-
Taka.
No comparison, because the
Oh.
Lulav, as the rabbi said, is 2 seconds, you lift it up and you fulfill it.
Yeah. But no, but he's saying,
No,
let's say you're in the
no.
middle of your Suda and you did your Suda early. You did your Suda 12 o'clock on Purim day. A Megillah is going to be till 6 p.m. No, but according to what he's saying, maybe you would tell the person they have to stop immediately because
They didn't hear.
they didn't hear the Megillah yet.
This takes 2 seconds to think that. That's a subjective judgment.
It's a 35-minute excursion. They're hearing the
Well, it
Megillah.
depends. It could be 20 minutes. Maybe you heard the first 3 prokim and you didn't hear the last couple.
Yeah.
Then your mopsy.
Or maybe you didn't do shlachana, or you didn't, I mean.
To do the other mitzvahs of the day. You started your Suda early.
Your mouth safe.
Do you get?
Taka, I believe you could do the mitzvahs any time of the day. And I think if you have enough time, I think you can finish your Suda.
So
If you know you're gonna have enough time. I'm just not I'm trying to think of it. I don't remember seeing. I always remembers the Missionary Gemara in Megillah that claims that if you haven't heard the Megillah, you have to stop the other mitzvahs.
Yeah,
You have the Suda and you
Good,
follow Lulav.
good.
So, okay, so now you're saying, okay.
Good.
I get my Purim Suda.
Good.
That's a Durabanan,
Right,
right?
right.
And I forgot one of the mitzvahs of the day.
You forgot one of them.
By the way, with regard to Lulav also, in the end with the Lulav, what do we say? If you started your meal at 12 o'clock, you were in the middle of the meal, and then you remember you didn't take the Lulav on Chol Hamoed day. By the way, if it's the first day of Yontif and you didn't do it in your house for some reason, stop the meal because it's mitzvah d'oraita. That we did say, remember? That we did say. But let's say it's the Rabbanan because it's already the second day of Yontif, third day, fourth day, fifth day. But it was you're eating a meal and it's 12 o'clock, finish your meal and pick up the Lulav after. If you know you're going to have enough time, that is actually okay. That's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. But if it's already 5:30 p.m. and you're eating a meal on second day of Chol Hamoed Sukkos, and you realize I never picked up the Lulav, and there's 5 minutes left, and you're going to finish your meal, you're never going to pick up the Lulav. Stop right away and take the Lulav. You don't want to miss the opportunity. And the point is because it's like 1 second. Okay, how long is it going to take? Pick it up, done.
But
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that would be the same thing if you didn't hear the Tekiah shofar. If you're in the middle of your meal, oh my God, it's Rosh.
That's right. That's the mitzvah d'oraita.
It's a mission to go right.
That's going to stop right there, though.
You have to stop.
But there we say the it's mitzvah d'oraita. Yeah, but we're saying,
You need Durabanan. You can't-
yeah, it has to be a d'rabbanan.
No, the Shofar is doing right, that's what I'm saying.
Stop.
Any Duraita
Stop and take care of it.
Right.
The d'oraita you do have all day. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have time for tonight. Join us next week. Okay, see you all soon.